Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, sexiest voice in triathlon himself, James Bale. Mate, welcome back to the podcast.
How are you, mate? How are you?
I was telling you just before, I've just done a pretty spicy little bike trainer session, and it was just in that zone where it wasn't too extreme, like it wasn't crazy high watts, but it was just enough. I mean, I think erg mode, it's good, but it's not good. It's not good. Like there's erg. I can hold high watts on the road pretty comfortably. And you vary because you're not erg mode, mate. It just makes everything harder than it needs to be. And that session was just one that it was a 75-minute session, right? Not a super long bike session, but it felt like it went for about 4 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
I was in that trainer vortex, where
Did
every
you finish it though? Did you
yeah,
finish it? Did you
yeah,
get
yeah.
it done?
Tim does his
Good man.
training. Yeah, Tim does his training.
There you
Haven't
go.
missed haven't
That's what
missed
we
a
want.
session this week, mate. I'm a good athlete. Trying to get back on the trying to get back to my best. But yeah, how about you, mate? How's the injury? Break your hip?
It's still a problem. I'm still struggling to walk, let alone run. I am hoping. I mean, it is recovering. It is feeling better every day, but it's nowhere near solved yet. So I'm just sitting around eating food and hoping for the best, to be honest, at the moment. But I'm missing training lots. It affects my mood. It
You,
affects my mood.
I tell you what you could probably do. You know what would be a good form of training for somebody with your injury that would be low impact, be able to keep you moving. You know what it's called?
Just don't know. I don't know what's going to come now. What's going to come? What are you going
It's
to say?
swimming, mate. Swimming would be
Ah,
fantastic for you.
yeah, but
It,
swimming is so dull, isn't it? I'm done with it. I'm done with it. I'm
I'm
done with it. It's very difficult
I'm
to
loving
swim where I
swimming.
live.
Maybe aren't you in? Yeah, okay, I don't know. I'm loving swimming at the moment. I'm in such a good place to swim in. It's funny that, isn't it? How you go through phases. Sometimes you absolutely hate it, and other times you can get in the pool and like a 5K set's just done. You're like, oh, this
Yeah,
is good.
absolutely.
So
It comes in fits and starts. It comes in fits and starts. But
it certainly does. But look, this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, so it's premier endurance sports community created by four-time world champion Chris McCormack. Mate, we have a lot to talk about this week. We have a guest this week, but I think there is one big thing we are going to talk about, and that is the tragic news that what happened in Ironman Hamburg over the weekend, the European Championships, where we saw a motor official crash into an age grouper and lose their life. I also know the age grouper who was in the incident, I believe, has either broke their back or neck. I saw they were on one of the Trainer Road forums. It has been a interesting few days for the sport, and it is terrible. I get into that. We got Joe coming on, Joe Skipper coming on later in the episode. I spoke with Joe last night about this. I thought, again, Joe is friends of ours or whatever, but I also thought Joe has been probably the most vocal athlete I can think of about motorbikes on course for years at this point. I thought his was a perspective that I wanted to have. I'm going to tell you in advance, it is not a very funny interview, to be honest. It's not very lighthearted. We don't just talk about that; we talk about other stuff. But I don't have a lot of jokes to say this week, mate. To be honest, yeah. I've had a few days. I think we both have had a few days to sort of process what's happened, and I don't want to make, in the context of things, like you know, I don't want to make it this huge thing. Like I don't feel like covering this like we did with the Colin Chartier stuff and stuff like. But it definitely I think needs to be discussed, and it needs to be
yeah,
discussed seriously because it has been yeah, pretty rough few days for the sport, and I'll get into it in a bit. But like I think things are pretty grim in the moment for triathlon. But like,
yeah.
where do you want to start?
Yeah, I think it's been a rough few days. It has. It has been processing it since the incident happened as well. Um, because obviously, as the race was taking, we're talking about Ironman Hamburg, as the race was taking place, the internet is always alive with comments and people are messaging you about things and the race is happening and who's doing what. And then it took a really dark tone because there was this wave of information out there that had been a very serious incident on course involving a moto and a competitor. And as more and more information came out, and unfortunately videos were being shared, it happened live on camera, so it was captured on camera, and there were videos being shared around the internet. It became very clear that this incident was very serious, and more information came out, and unfortunately, it resulted in a fatality of the moto rider, which
Mm.
is tragic. And our thoughts are with their family. But also, it resulted in very serious injuries for a competitor, for two other competitors, I believe, the cameraman as well, and another competitor. So it was a hideous thing to witness. It was a horrible thing to know had taken place. But I think the aftermath, well, the immediate aftermath and the aftermath from the response from the race organizers and the athletes is something that is worthy of comment.
I mean, for me, I don't know if you were following the race, but I was watching the race, on it was our Sunday evening. I think the race started. I sort of was watching a bit of the swim again. The swim's the most boring. The person who can make a triathlon swim entertaining, I will. I think we'll make a lot of money someday. But I think I went for a run, and I remember I'd gotten back and I'd seen little bits of the. Maybe I'd left just after the. Anyway, I got back and I was trying to watch the feed, and it was just all this random footage. And I was going, what the hell is like? They had a technical problem, and I was going through the comments on YouTube, and everyone was talking about this crash, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, what's happened? It was odd. So you look for information, and then you see. Then again, I think I went on Twitter, and I think I did this hashtag Ironman Hamburg, and then I saw footage of this crash, and you don't realize it's. I think I even retweeted it first, and something like, we've said this so many times. There's too many motorbikes on course, and then you suddenly start to hear news. Somebody might have died. I think as soon as I heard that, I was like, take that tweet down. That ain't, that's not cricket.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but like, I think it's that there was this element of heightened confusion about what exactly, and there was photos of amateur athletes walking bikes up the grass. And it's like, what the hell is actually happening here? And it was so weird to get back to watching the race, and the race is on. Like, when they're on the run, they're running, and it's like, everything's okay. Online, it's pandemonium.
And the internet was on fire, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I think the German broadcast had stopped. The German media were reporting a fatality. Ironman had said nothing. So the English-speaking people are trying to translate German documents. And it was just this, what's the word? Vortex of oddness. I've said vortex twice this episode, which is weird. But it was...
It really was. It was like we were living in... It was like there was a parallel universe playing out in the race. The broadcast you were watching was a parallel universe to reality that everybody was reporting on. I don't think, because I was on a train at the time, I don't think I've ever had so many messages in such a short space of time from everyone I know within the sport, basically saying, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Do you know what's happening? And it was like, blimey. So I was trying to keep a handle on it. I mean, there's a lot to talk about from my perspective in terms of the incident itself happening, the actual incident taking place, I think, is a result of many, many things culminating into this one moment, which is the swelling of fields, too many people competing all in one race, the addition of too many motos in races, and then a lack of forethought or preparation from the race organizer as to how they could prevent an incident like this.
I'll add another thing to that, because I don't think it's just the swelling of fields. I think it's the wave starts as well. It's these self-seeded wave starts. I actually think you look at it now, and people, please feel free to disagree with me if you want. But in the past, when you had wave starts, right, each wave would have faster and slower athletes. And yes, if it sucked if your wave was one of the last ones because you had to go through a lot of people. But what I think we're seeing these days as well is that we have like bigger fields, and you get in bigger groups of athletes who are a similar level, all going together. So that what ends up happening is the entire field is just, there's no gaps. It's just one big thing, because everybody sort of stays in their spot and goes together. Whereas at least in the past, I feel like it was more broken up. So you wouldn't at any point just have everybody, I think that's just another factor. So
and then when you've got fields this big, I mean, I'm hearing reports there were about 21 motos following that lead group of professional men.
It was just, whatever. It was too many. Like
it was too many. Whatever the number, it was too many.
Photos ridiculous. Like it's fucking madness. It
really is. It was much more than one for one. And then when you've got that many motorcycles, what do they think is going to happen? How controlled do you think that environment can be? And then we go past the incident actually taking place and what could have prevented it taking place. The incident does happen. And that's where an organization like this, it's not only a sport, so it's a field of play, but it's also a workplace for those motorcycle riders, for emergency services, for people that work for the rent organization. They have a responsibility to have an emergency plan, to have something that can kick in when something like this happens. Now, it might have done, all right? They obviously dealt with it from a medical perspective quite quickly, but they didn't deal with it from the perspective of the race itself, and also from mitigating risk after it had taken place, because that incident taking place immediately in my mind showed me there was a clear and present danger within the dynamic of the bikes and the race on course. What they didn't do was do anything to reduce that danger. They didn't think, right, well, this is a risk that is taking place on course. We need to slow things down, stop it happening, and then we'll go back to wherever we can start again. Having people having to get off their bikes and walk up a bank to go around the accident, in my mind, is adding more risk to the situation.
Which I also believe the pros had to do it too. And again, one thing that I'm not clear about from everything post is that I think at some point they might have actually changed the course so that people didn't go past. Or again, I'm not quite clear, but
well, I read today, Thorsten's post said that they thought about that and then they didn't. And then he talked about having people go around the back, having to dismount the bikes and walk.
The pros have to do that. And I'm like, that's madness to me. I did say, and again, I'm going to be, I don't want to be, I don't think there's any, maybe there is, but I saw Andrew Basic's been doing the rounds, and I saw the article they wrote, Tri 24/7 wrote, where he was saying that they did make an assessment that it would be safer to keep the race going, saying, you know, that if you've got 2,000 people on course, how do you communicate with them that the race has been stopped? Whether I agree with it or not, I can see that point. I feel like they might have, I don't know what I'm trying to say, is I can understand why they chose to continue the race. I don't know if I agree with it, but I can understand why.
Yes, I can see that point. I can see why, exactly. And I agree with you. That point has validity. I disagree with it, but it has validity. Couple that point, though, just to continue the race, but also not to acknowledge something's happened on broadcast.
That's the issue I have. That's
insane.
That's the big issue I have, I think, is that. Like,
my opinion is they should have stopped the race. My opinion is that it's a looped bike course. Every time an athlete gets back into T2, whichever loop they're on, you say, look, sorry, the race has been red flagged. It's over. And you remove all motos from the course immediately. And as soon as an athlete finishes their loop, it's over, because something very serious has happened. And it's not like a fatality in the swim where someone's had a medical incident, which is tragic in itself, or a fatality on the run, or even on the bike where someone's had a medical issue and they've, you know, unfortunately passed out or fallen over and died. This is something where the race organizers may or may not been at fault. Now, in my opinion, they were, but, you know, you've got to be careful what you say. So this is something very, very serious. And it shows that there was a risk on course of more death and more issues. So stop the fucking race and deal with the consequences of that afterwards. But in the immediate, what they had to do was remove that risk. If it was a construction site, I've said this to you before, and someone dies, you down tools immediately to assess what has happened and then to mitigate it happening again.
Yeah. Like, I certainly
having that broadcast sorry, I keep interrupting you, but having that broadcast carrying on like nothing had happened.
Yeah, it was bad.
What they needed to say, I mean, I'm not a broadcaster. I mean, I'm a podcaster. But what they needed to say,
got the voice for it, mate. You've got the voice for broadcasting.
Yeah, absolutely. What they needed to say in that moment was, look, we acknowledge that something serious has happened on the course. There has been a serious incident. We know that a lot of you saw it happen. We cannot say any more at the moment for obvious reasons, because of people's families and who may not be involved, and there's an investigation taking place. The medical team are dealing with it, but we acknowledge that has happened, and the race is continuing for the moment.
That
would have been it. That would have made it a lot more sensible.
I agree. They needed to make comment, and I think the fact that they also turned comments off, like, because on the stream you could. That to me, like, anytime you see somebody do that, it's like, that's bad. Like, that doesn't.
But it made them look callous. It made them put in a position where they instantly looked like they cared more about the implications of stopping the race to them than they did the fact that something had happened on course.
The other point as well, right? Like, I think Greg Welsh is maybe getting a bit of cop in a bit of unfair flack, because I'm assuming that he's not choosing to not say.
Yeah, it's not the commentator's fault. They will have been told what they can and can't say.
But having said that, you watch any other sporting event, you watch an F1 race, you watch a cycling race, you watch a football match. When there's a serious injury or an accident, I mean, you know, in cycling, there's, you know, we've had incidences of team cars and motorbikes hitting cyclists. F1 has huge crashes all the time. You know, I've seen UFC fights or boxing matches where people have died from KOs and things like that. Like, terrible things happen. You don't have the commentators. Like, to me, it's almost like a human reaction to react to something terrible, and that's where I'm a bit like, what? Didn't they not see it? Like, I that's the only little thing that I'm like, I hope
Yeah,
they
I
didn't see
mean,
it.
if it was given to them like this has happened, but you're not allowed to mention it, then the human reaction is, okay, I can't mention what's happened because my boss is telling me I can't, but I've got to tone down this whole, we're having an amazing day. What an amazing day it's been in Hamburg. It's going to be a
100%.
course record. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Like,
100%.
because, because,
100%.
because it hasn't been an amazing day, has it,
100%.
Greg? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, you sent me a quote this morning that I hadn't seen yet, which was an interview that Andrew Messick had done where he'd said sometimes doing nothing is better than doing the wrong thing. It sounds very profound,
I
doesn't
mean,
it? You know,
it's an accurate statement. I actually agree with the statement. I don't think
but
it
it's
applies in this situation, though.
no, of course it doesn't. It sounds like a fridge magnet. It sounds like something that my mum might
You
post on
say
Facebook.
it best when you
Yeah,
say nothing at all.
because in this, where you're responsible for the safety of thousands of people on a field of play in a workplace, there's no place for fridge magnet statements.
Mm.
Imagine if you were at work and or at, I keep going the construction site analogy, but I'm on a construction site and somebody dies. The health and safety officer doesn't turn around and go, sometimes it's better to do nothing than do the
Well,
wrong thing.
I mean, you're gonna hear me talk with Joe, but Joe's gonna bring this up later, but I'll bring it up with you. And he said it on his own podcast this week, right? He goes, if you look at other incidents that we've had, that let's not look at this one. And again, I want to say, I don't think this is an Ironman problem, right? By the way, I don't think this is. We're talking a lot about Ironman right now. This is not to me an Ironman problem. This is a triathlon problem. But we've had incidents on a whole number of, Matt Russell got taken out by a car in Kona one year. We've had athletes, have had accidents, been taken out. We've reported a number of times, right, about athletes being taken out by cars in races and things like that. Nothing has actually changed as a result of that. Like they're not actually changing. You don't have barricades blocking all the streets on the Queen K in Kona to stop cars. It's just, it's like lucky that it hasn't happened again a little bit. And that to me is, that's the thing, right? Is I understand mistakes happen, and I understand that things that maybe you didn't think were possible can happen. What I have an issue with, and this is in life in general, is I hate when people and things and companies don't learn from their mistakes. Like fucking hell, this has
Yes.
happened. This can't happen again. Like whatever
No.
we need to as a sport, again, not Ironman, as a sport, work out solutions that prevent this sort of thing from happening. And this isn't just the motorbike incident. This is cars running into athletes during a race. Like there's so many factors, but it has to.
Yeah, what hit home for me on this is we've been moaning a long time about swollen field sizes.
Yep.
And because I don't think about it, I think about the sport as, fundamentally safe. I always assume that there's a level of safety put in place by these organizers who do these huge races. I always think about it from a drafting perspective. I'm like, oh, you can't have that many people on course because, you can't do the drafting rule. What really hit home for me when I was sitting on that train the other day was that it is swelling the courses isn't about drafting. It's about the safety side.
Yeah.
Too many people on courses and people are going to start. This is going to happen more and more often, especially with the addition of more and more motos, because it's not just the camera motos. It's you can if you apply for media accreditation with Ironman, you can apply for a motorcycle.
Yeah. I mean,
you tick the box to get the motorcycle.
for example, and again, I'm not trying to. I don't think he did anything wrong, right? But Noel Mulkey, a lot of people know who Noel is, and I was in Kona. Noel was in Kona last year, and he was there. He was running the Ironman Instagram TikTok for race day, and they gave him. He had a motorbike or a Vespa that he could ride around all access. I think he got the pass. He could go wherever he wanted on a moped to film content for the race. I think now. I saw him up in the energy lab. So I don't actually know whether but again, I don't think they made him do a safety brief. I don't think they went through any processes with him. I could be wrong. Please don't quote me. But to me, it's just like, yeah, they just sort of.
If you're going to be in charge on a powered vehicle on the race course, you need to have a certain level of accreditation. Whether or not he did, I don't know, but that should be the rule. You should have a certain level of accreditation that means that you are safe to be in control of something that can be fatal. Now, in my opinion, it goes further than that with this. The ultimate solution to this is to have somebody who isn't commercially minded. When when an emergency like this happens or some incident like this happens, there need to be somebody within the organization or an arbiter from outside a governing body who says, like, right, I'm in charge now. Something really bad has happened. I'm in charge.
I'm
I
not worried
don't
about the
care about.
profit. I'm not worried
I'm
about
not
the
worried about
thing.
the profit. I'm
Yeah.
not worried about your race. I'm not worried about the finishing people
It's a good
finishing.
point. Yeah.
It's like on a construction site, the health and safety officer is the god of incidents. As soon as something happens, I don't
It's
care
like
about your program. I don't care about your building. I care about stopping site and finding making sure no one dies again. And
separation of
that
powers
is
with the
what
court,
we
right? They don't have any
exactly.
ties to the government because they need to be impartial. I think, yeah, I get it.
And
Yeah.
that's what we need on these race courses. As soon as something like this happens, there needs to be an individual
You
who
assume it'd be the
goes, right.
referee, wouldn't it? You'd assume it would be the race
Yeah,
referee, but
you would assume I'm in charge now and I don't give a
I'm
fuck
the
about
captain.
anything other
You know
than
that meme?
safety. Yeah,
I'm the
I'm the
captain now.
captain now. Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. I mean, I don't think there's much more for us to say on
I don't know.
this, unless you've
I
got
don't
any
have.
other points.
I mean,
I think
the,
Joe makes some very good points that everyone should
I
listen
think
to.
the only point I want to make is about change because you'll hear on the like Joe's pretty pessimistic that things are going to change, and I don't want to speak, but I really feel like I don't think the sport's in a very good place at the moment, to be honest, man. I know there's been a lot of positivity and there's the PTO is doing so much for pro racing and it's this. I'm concerned about the state of triathlon at the moment, mate, because I mean, again, I work into the sport. I'm an agent. I deal with sponsorship. I am seeing things happening. I see sponsorship dollars. It's like some of the offers that I see come across my desk now are laughable. And when you push back, they're like, "This is what it's worth." No, it is not. And I hear about top tier pros accepting product only deals and things like that. Then you've also got the fact that we've had the Colin Chartier thing. We've had this thing. We've had the problems with filling, the split Kona races, the Nice. We're struggling to give. And I heard it. 70.3 Kona last weekend. They couldn't even give away slots to the Kona race this year. Like the sport to me is it's in a precarious position at the moment. We're about the world is a bit fucked, and everybody's sort of pretending like we're in this incredible position because of the PTO. And I think it's almost like it's a false perception of prosperity. Like things need to start changing for the sport because I am scared about, and I am sorry to be so pessimistic. I try to be as optimistic as possible, and people might think I'm completely wrong, but I am worried about the sport of triathlon at the moment. As a huge fan of the sport, I love this sport so much. I am genuinely worried about the state of it because nothing seems to be making a difference at the moment. Everybody is just going along like everything's hunky dory, and it isn't. And
No.
something, and again, I think Try 24/7 put out a great article, right? Like talking about that, what's going to make change. Is it for the PTO as an athlete body to make a change? I think somebody has to. But to me, this isn't a pro athlete problem. This to me is an amateur, us, age grouper, people who pay to do these races. It is time for us to take action. And what I mean is there are too many races out there now that are starting to cut corners because of the costs involved. I don't know how many races in Australia now don't have closed roads. I don't know how many races you go to where things are like I've done races where there's been bales of hay at the bottom of a steep descent because if you go over, you'll fucking die. Like there's so many things that
At least the bales were there.
at least the bales were there. But to me, for example, there's I will not name the company, but a company in Australia does a lot of races and they are notorious for not closing their roads. And I cannot you could not, I will not do it. I will not do it. And again, call me precious if you like, guys listening. But to me, I'm not racing on a race with open roads. You can get fucked.
Oh, mate. Almost every race in the UK, other than the Ironman races and some challenge, are open roads.
And again,
and it is petrifying.
This is the thing, right? Is I don't think it's always been the case, and they'll say it's too expensive to close the roads. And if you do, I'll pay more if I have to do a race with closed roads. But as the customer, which is what we are, guys, always remember we are the customer. When we allow these things to happen, that's when they happen. At some point, we have to say, no, I don't want to do a race that has that many competitors. No, I don't want to do a race that doesn't have closed roads. No, I don't want to do a race where it's actually dangerous for me to do this. I think it's something has to give.
I saw an interesting comment on one of the articles where someone had put on underneath the article said, I think they did the best they could because they do a lot. They enable thousands of people to go and live their dreams. And so, sometimes incidents like this happen. And I think they did the best they could, but weighed against all the good they bring to the world. And it's like, that's a really strange way of looking at it. It's almost like disconnecting from the fact that you're paying to do this event. Like you say, you're the customer here. You're not You're not lucky to be able to go and do this. They're not doing you a favor.
No.
It's a business. You're paying them to do it.
Yeah.
So the safety measures should be in place, and they should be fucking rock
And
solid.
I can just see the comments on our YouTube because they're always fucking horrible. But I stand by
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Like I really mean it. This
We'll
isn't
just turn the comments off, shall we?
no.
Turn the comments off.
Exactly. There we go. That seems to work. But like legitimately, it's time for people to actually start fucking drawing a line in the sand, right? And I think the pros
Yeah.
have a role to play. I think the PTO, if it's the PTO, if it's World Triathlon, if it's whatever it is, but us as the customer, we should demand more. We should demand safer races. We should demand closed roads. We it's not good enough. Like
No,
it's
agreed.
not. And again, for a lot of people, I know sometimes a lot of amateurs somehow forget this. It's a fucking hobby. Like
Yeah,
it's a fucking
yeah.
hobby, right? It's not our
It's
job.
a hobby.
If you get your,
No one should lose their life over a hobby
I don't know how many times
in this.
when I used to play soccer or football, right? You'd get the guy who'd come and he'd be super aggressive and he'd like try to hurt you. And I used to be like, dude, leave your fucking problems at home. Don't come to the soccer ground to take out your frustrations from your shitty life. And like I should be able to go do the triathlon that I love because I love the sport, not worry about dying, and then go home and live my life. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm sorry I always tend to rant a little bit, don't I? But
No, you're all good. It's just it's been hard. It's been a hard week.
I think what we should
Um, in
do,
in terms of the race results, do you want to mention the race results? I mean, the athletes don't seem to care that much,
I was going to say, let's
but
drop the interview with Joey and then we'll come
all
back.
right,
We'll talk a bit about the race. We'll do a bit of other stuff and then we'll wrap it up. How's that sound?
cool.
All right. I'll drop the interview with him with Joe and we'll be back. Well, we are joined once again by, I think you actually are now the most frequent guest on this podcast. It is multiple Ironman champion, the second fastest person to ever go 140.6 miles swimming, biking, and running, Joe Skipper. Joe, how you going, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Great to be back on the show, Tim. I'm all good. Getting ready to head to Gerardsbergen tomorrow for the next race. So yeah, not doing too much this week. Just basically making sure the legs feel good and hopefully have a good race on the weekend.
Did you notice, or I don't know if you're aware, it was a year this week since Sub 7 happened last year. Can you believe it's been a year since then?
No, I can't. It's gone so fast, and I did see that because on Facebook it said a year ago today or whatever, and I saw that it was 4th of June, wasn't it? Last year
So,
when it happened.
yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Like it's gone so fast, but that was an awesome day. I absolutely love being part of that and seeing the memories again come up. Brought back some really good memories.
I still remember when we got told that you were going to be you're basically doing it, and like people think we're joking. It was literally a week out, and I remember calling you, being like, "So this is happening, Joe," and you're like, "Yeah, why not? Let's give it a go." Like you were just so casual about it. I still remember just being. There's not many people in the world I think would be presented with this thing and go, "Yeah, fuck it, let's give it a go."
Yeah, my train had been so bad leading into it because of the COVID
The
as well.
COVID,
Like
yeah, I
it
remember.
wouldn't the 8 days notice would not have been a problem if I was in full fitness. But the thing was, I weren't like I don't think people realize how little training I'd actually
Mm.
done in the lead up to it. Like I'd done like 2 weeks and then I was training for I was only out in Poland because I was supposed to be doing a Mickey Mouse half event, what Chris had organised, and that was to kind of get back into the swing of things, you know. So like yeah, I end up going Sub 7 and to do the performance that I did on that day from the fitness that I was at was probably one of my best performances to date because it was one of them days where you surpassed what you probably should do in training. Because a lot of times you get to races and you think, oh, my training's gone really well, I should do this performance, and then you don't do it, and you think, oh God, if only I'd have done what I was capable of in training. Whereas on that day, with what I had done in the lead up to it, it massively surpassed what I should have been capable of. So it was really good. And I guess part of that was probably the atmosphere leading into it. We had a really good laugh, being part of a team as well. You don't want to let your teammates down, and and then knowing that everyone was watching it and all the media coverage, it just really helped raise your game. And I would love to be a part of it again, and I'd love to do it in full fitness with a proper build up into it and see what we could do, or do it as some kind of team race where you could have like 3 or 4 teams all going against each other. Yeah, a
Yeah.
great day, and loved it.
All I remember is I had to be up at, I think I was up at 3:30 and I was out at the race venue at 4 a.m. I just been like, this is going to be a long day. And I think I went to bed at 4 a.m. the next day. So it was a big day. I guess there's a fair few things I want to touch. The main thing I want to talk to you about is what happened in Hamburg last weekend. But before we get to that, it has been, I think the last time we connected, you were just about to race Ironman Texas. didn't have the day you wanted there, and then you went to Ibiza and also didn't have it the day you wanted there. And I've spoken with you a lot after both of those races. I don't think people probably realize how much of an impact that Ibiza performance really had on you. How are you feeling afterwards? Like, you were not happy. Like, it wasn't a show. You were genuinely pretty down after that. But how have you bounced back?
Yeah, I was really disappointed after that because my training had been going so well beforehand, and I felt like I was on for a decent performance. But I just tried to put it behind me in the end because at the end of the day, it's done. You can't go back in time and change it. Like, it is what it is. And then just try to move on really and just continue training well and trying to be the best I can be. Because I guess at the end of the day, if you keep training hard and you keep doing everything you can, sooner or later you should get the result that you deserve, or the effort that you've put in reflects. So just trying to look ahead to the next races. And I feel like my fitness has gone really well since then. Like, I've been hitting some really good sessions across the board, swim, biking and running. So I am confident that I should do a good race this weekend. The only thing that you kind of think, if you think in the back of your head, is, well, I thought I was going to get a good result in the ITU Worlds, but if I just looked at the training, what I've done, I'm in really good shape. So hopefully I can race to the levels that my training suggests. And if I do that, then it should be a really good performance and a good confidence booster going into Challenge Roth 2 weeks after.
I mean, I spoke with Ellie Salthouse last week, and we know that everybody who follows the sport knows that Ellie didn't have the 2022 that she probably wanted. And we spoke a lot about mindset and how those doubts start to creep in, and that pressure. You have had two, I guess, bad performances, or, performances that aren't what you would have wanted. Like, you sort of touch on that. Like, how have you, has that started to be in it? Like, I mean, I've heard you talk about it a little bit, but like, are doubts starting to creep in? And is it simply just don't think about it, just push forward, focus on the train? Or are there other things that you've had to do to, I guess, stop that sort of negativity from creeping in?
I don't really know if like doubts have like crept in. Like, I guess when it's the first race of the season each year anyway, you're always kind of a bit like nervous kind of thing. Like, your trainer's gone well, but you don't know how everyone else has gone. And that makes it more nerve-wracking, I guess. I always find the first race of the year the worst one, and then it gets easier after that. But because I've had two basically not very good races or performances, I'm not really anymore like doubting what I've done, because consistently I've been hitting really good paces in training. And obviously I can look back and see what kind of power outputs and run speeds I was hitting when I was doing some of my best performances. And I would say that I'm consistently hitting better powers and better run speeds, and at least swimming as good, if not better, than I have when I've done my best races. So I know I should be in good fitness, and I should be able to do a better performance over a half and full distance than what I've ever done before. Whether or not that's good enough to beat other people, I don't know, because I don't know what they're doing in training. But compared to what I've done in the past, I'm definitely in better shape. It's just whether or not just concentrating on trying to execute my race, if you know what I mean. Like, and if I execute my race, then it should be better than what I've done before. That's how I'm thinking about it, because I think it would be a lot more negative if my train had gone really badly and I wasn't hitting the times and paces that I'd hit before, because then I'd be thinking, oh God, I'm not in as good a shape as I was. How come it's not coming back? And I might be thinking negative like that, but I'm like consistently hitting better paces. My heart rate's better, for the speed. So I kind of tell myself, well, you're consistently showing better form than you have done. So a result has got to come at some point, because, I said in one of my latest videos, if you do the training, it's like buying lottery tickets, and the more training you do, the more lottery tickets you buy, your odds go up, don't they have a better result? So, it's not guaranteed, but if you're consistently training well, your odds of getting a good result go up.
I was just sitting here thinking, it's like funny because when we're not recording a podcast, we're like swearing and carrying on. We seem quite serious, because I was going to say that you messaged me after one of your sessions the other day and you told me your average pace. And I think the response was just like, fuck you. When you told me what your average pace was for that 4x5K session you did. And it was, what was it, 328, including easy Ks between or something like that. And I was like, you motherfucker.
Yeah, including recovery. Yeah, it started off at like, we wanted to just hit 17 minutes for him, and it went like 16:48, 16:52, I think, 16:42, and then the last one 16:34, and the 1Ks were about like 4:20. There was three of us that did it, but the other two just did 3 5Ks. So the last one I was doing it by myself. Had techno as well like who was pacing me. He's for those that don't know, he's a guy that lives locally.
Everybody
He's
knows Techno,
retired.
mate. Come on, he's
Yeah.
the most famous athlete out of Norwich, right? He's the
Yeah.
there's a big
But hit a
billboard.
really good, yeah, he did a really good speed session as well yesterday, actually, on the track. So we did like 6 800. Like this is like race week. So Challenge Geroldsbergen's on Sunday. So this was Tuesday. So you don't want to go too hard. It's only 5 days before the race, but wanted to get like a bit of speed work in. So it was like 6 800s, basically, you know, the equivalent of 6 2 to 2.5 minute effort. So nothing too big, but good VO2 max session. And I was saying to my friend, we'll try and start off at 226 for the eights and build down and average 224. But we started off, first one was like 221. We were like, oh, that's quicker than what we thought. So we did 221s for all of them. And I said to him, the last one, we'll give it a bit of a push, and then finished in a 211 for it, which is like 244K pace. And it felt comfortable. Like I think if I was doing that session, I could have, if I was doing it hard, like if I didn't have a race on Sunday and it was 6 8, and I was actually thinking, right, you know, I'll push this one, each rep fet pretty hard. I think I could have probably averaged 217, something like that for him, 216 maybe. So for me, it's good paces for the speed. Normally we don't do the sessions on the proper track. We just did it on a proper track yesterday to get a bit of a confidence booster.
Yep.
Ahead, because your paces are a lot faster. Whereas I run on a cinder track, which is actually a quarter of a mile, so it's 2 meters long, and it's basically like a trail surface. It's loads of little stones. So you run 3 seconds a lap slower. So you're always looking at your times and you're like, oh, am I in good shape or not? Because the times look a bit shit compared to what everyone else is doing on a normal track. But actually, they're actually pretty good. And when you normally run on like the roads, you actually run faster than what you do on that track. Whereas a normal track, you do a session and you never quite hit the paces when you go onto a road loop, do you? You know, you're always a bit slower than what you do on the track. So I did that yesterday. That was a good confidence booster going into the race because I'm like, well, I'm hitting decent paces. And in a half, you've obviously got to run so much slower, haven't you, than what you do in a session like that to get a good run time.
Oh, mate,
so I'm
just
like,
go
well,
sub 3 minute pace off the bike. No, not what could go wrong. Just
if I could do 324s off the bike, 324K pace on Sunday, that would be a good run for me, and I'd be pleased with that. That would be a 111 something. That would be pretty solid. Yeah. So, and it should be doable.
I know I was messaging you because I did my first set of 800s last week, and again, since I got put, and I think I usually do when I'm in good shape, I'm doing my 800s and around between 230 and 240 for me is a good set of 800s, and I was struggling to get under 3 minutes, and I remember just going, God, I'm shit. Like, how rough is this? But yeah, always a bit humbling to talk to somebody like you, mate, where it's like, yeah, just casual 217 pace, no worries.
That was actually a real surprise for me though. That was hitting them times. I didn't, because I never normally do it on a proper track. Like it's normally that stony one. So I wasn't sure, but I did it with a friend and we want to go sub 15 for the 5K. So we thought we'll do it on the proper track and just see what that effort would feel like. And I'm definitely going to do that. I spoke to you about it, didn't?
Yeah, we got something coming, don't we? Yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah, I'm actually speaking to the guy who runs the local run shop as well. And we're going to, if anyone listens to this and they live near Norfolk or wanted to, we're up for it, I think middle of July, we're going to organise some different 5K events. We're going to get some pacemakers on for different speeds and have organised like a proper event. We did this during COVID, actually, where I organised 4 running events in July or August when we had a little break from it. And there was a massive turnout we got and it was awesome. We'll get some prizes from some of the sponsors and stuff like that. And, make a big thing of it. So if anyone fancies that, probably mid-July is when we'll do it.
Check out Joe's socials and subscribe to his YouTube channel to find out more. There's a little plug, mate. You are racing this weekend. Tell us a little bit about the challenge Gisbergen. How do you pronounce it?
Gerard's. Well, I don't know if this is the exact pronunciation, but it looks like Gerardsbergen.
Gerardsbergen. I was nowhere near. So interesting looking course. It's got cobblestones on the bike, right?
Yeah. So if anyone watches like Tour of Flanders or some of the Belgian classics, you got the Muur de Gerardsbergen, which is the one with like a bit of I think it's got a spire or something at the top. It's about a 1K climb, averages about 10 or 11%, but it starts off at about 6% on cobbles, 6-7%, and then towards the end it ramps up for about 100-meter stretch at about 20%, really steep, bumpy cobbles, and that's pretty brutal. You got that twice, and the second time about 3Ks before transition, you kind of got that descend back down and then a 500-meter bit on the flat before you put your bike in, then you go onto the run. But it's an awesome course. It's undulating, 3 climbs each lap, 2-lap bike course. Really good support. And it starts late as well, which I like. It starts at about 10:30, I think, in the morning. So you don't have to don't have to get up at the crack of dawn, can get up at a normal time. Don't need to rack your bike until race day as well.
Perfect.
Yeah, so you can literally just like rock up with your bike, put it in, and yeah, it's just, and for me, it's an easy one to get to. It's in Belgium, but it's only 3.5 hours of driving, plus a ferry, so it's pretty casual.
I'm looking forward to seeing. Again, I take confidence in the fact that you had a bad start to last year and look how that turned out. So I'm assuming
I normally have bad starts every year, to be honest. If you look at how my racing normally goes, I normally always race pretty bad at the start of the year. And I've always done that. Even when I used to do cycling a bit beforehand, the early season races never used to be that good. And I always used to consistently do my best in like June, July, August kind of time. That's just naturally, it seems like when I'm
September, Joe.
kind
September.
of in my best form.
September's when you're going to be in your best form this year. Thank you.
September. I'll have to drag it on. Yeah. To be fair, I would say my best performance last year was Ironman Wales.
Agree.
Start of September, like physically from how I felt and looking at the numbers. And that is actually on the same day as when Nice falls this year. So if I could replicate that again, I'd be very pleased.
What was the marathon? 236, 237?
237, but it's a K long in Wales. And that's the thing. People don't take that into account. So it's a 233, 234 and 600 meters of climbing. I think it's the hilliest marathon on the circuit. So I think that run for me that day was for way better than anything I've done before. You know, I've run some 236s, 237s, but compared to the 237 in Wales, none of them come close. You know, if I had legs like that on a flat fast run course, that's a 230 marathon, 100%. Like that is, yeah. But people don't see if you don't know the course, you just look at it and think 237. That's okay. A lot of people do that, but when you know the course, anyone who's raced in Wales knows that is not an easy course to do.
Speaking of fast run times, we saw a series of fast results happen over the weekend in Hamburg, the European Championships, where I think the winner ran a 2:31 marathon or something like that. But I mean, let's start. Why don't we have a little bit of a chat around the race, because then we're going to talk about the other thing. But what did you think about the performances over in Hamburg?
The performances were really good. Like there was a lot of fast times. Loads of people went under 8 hours. Must have been getting on for 20 people that went under 8 hours, which is awesome. If the race, I have no idea if the race is accurate distance, but if it is accurate distance, then that just shows some really good performances and that you had to race very fast to get any kind of decent result. I have actually raced in Hamburg before, back in 2018, and it looked a very similar course. And if it's the same course that as what they were racing, then it's pretty much like it's close enough to. It's no different than any other Ironman. You know, the run might be 200 or 300 meters short, but like pretty much most of them aren't they nowadays? So 231 solid, and I know that guy has been running very fast consistently in a lot of Ironman races. He won the European Champs last year with a fast run, and I know he's done 230 something a lot of times before in the past. So you know, it could be accurate. Everyone's getting faster, aren't they, year on year? So a 231 could be a legit time, you know, and I wouldn't be surprised with that guy because he's not come out of nowhere. Bike times really quick, but the motorbikes, like I know we're going to go into more detail on that, but they make such a difference. When I was doing that race in 2018, the race got cancelled, the swim got cancelled, so it turned into a duathlon. It was a 6K run.
So you would have been early, mate. You would have been towards the front for once. It would have been.
I was literally in the front pack. I was in the front pack, and we had a shitload of motorbikes similar to what they had this year in it. And we were going out of transition. We were 50 k's an hour, over 50 k's an hour, getting pulled along by the motorbikes. And you kind of thought to yourself, don't let them go. And secondly, anyone who hasn't made this pack is fucked. They're
all over.
Totally gone. They're literally, there's no way they can close the gap. We're going 50 k's an hour. We're pedaling the same effort as what they probably are behind, going 45. But to close a 30, 40-second gap, they're going to have to go 53, 54 kilometers an hour. You know, and how long can you keep that going for? Not long enough. And if you do close it, you're probably going to be nailed that you're going to get dropped anyway. So it was a total farce. And I remember going along and people were getting spat one by one because at the front, it's actually easier because you've got more motorbikes towards the front. Because quite often the camera motorbike is looking back on you and that's right in front of you. So it makes it easier. And actually, as you probably go back from fourth to fifth, it's actually a bit harder. But you're still getting paced along. It's still easier than if you were by yourself, but it's not as easy as the front guy. So the front guy's pushing the pace. And I remember we were absolutely nailing it. So I was just thinking to myself, don't let them go. Don't let them go. Like, because you knew that if you did let them go and you rode at your own pace and you didn't have motorbikes, you were probably going to lose a minute or 2 minutes in no time. I end up having to let them go because I was like, I lost my nutrition in the race because of like cobbled section in the course, hit it, bottles came off like literally on the first lap. So I was always having to get my nutrition from aid stations. And I got so hungry to the point with about 20K to go, I had to ask an age grouper, can I get some gels on him? You know, one of the guys that you see, like the 15, 16 hour guys, got like a belt with like 20 gels on him. I was like, oh, can I get a gel? Can you spare us a gel? So he gave me a couple of gels. I had them and I had to kind of cruise into transition and not go too deep because I was like, I don't want to burn any more carbs. But I knew once I got into transition, I had a bottle, like an energy drink in my bag. So I was like, so I needed to kind of save something. I got in off the bike, I think 2 minutes down. So not too bad. Still in the mix. And then started the run. And I think I ended up finishing second to Bart Ennets, who probably biked 4 hours or maybe under 4 hours. It was he was like one of the fastest off the bike. And got second place. But it was a great race, but it was a fast. If you didn't make the front group, you know, there was no way you were gonna. No one bridged up to that group, which just shows you.
This is the reason I asked you to come on this week because I mean, our conversations. You know, I've heard you on your podcast, you on social media. You are to me one of the most outspoken athletes on the circuit talking about motorbikes on course. So much so that there's been races that have like financially made a lot of sense for you to go and race. And you have decided not to race because you know it's just going to be a motorbike draft fest. Like, you know, you don't just speak it, you live it, mate. Like you don't go and do the races if they're going to be dramatically impacted. And I mean, we're going to talk about the horrible incident that happened in Hamburg a little bit, but how it sort of went with us discussing the race on the weekend. It didn't start us about talking about the accident. It started with a photo. I think I sent you a photo of the thing, just going like, look at this, mate. This is like disgraceful. And from that, we've now seen, you know, this horrible incident where the motorbiker hit an age grouper. Motorbiker lost his life tragically. The age grouper has broken his back. You know, been in hospital.
Is that what happened to the age grouper? Because I heard he was seriously injured, but I didn't actually hear what he'd done.
He popped up on the Trainer Road forum talking about the incident, and yeah, he was in hospital. So I think it's either he broke his back or his neck. A bunch of
bloody hell.
like serious injuries and stuff like that. But I mean, you look at this, and again, I don't want to. I mean, I kind of do. I kind of do want to say that, you know, I think Ironman have really fucked up here, to be honest. But it's one thing to talk about the race, but this was not safe, mate. And we've heard Jan come out and say the same thing. We've seen, I think Christian Hogenhagen talk about it. Like, you know, you've spoken about this a lot. What do you think about this? Like, what do you think about this number of motorbikes on that course?
I think it's just the same shit all the time, to be honest. Like, there's loads of courses where the motorbikes are as bad as what they were in this race, you know. It's just that an accident doesn't happen, so it doesn't get the coverage what it should do. You know, when I raced Switzerland the other year, there was a load of motorbikes, maybe not quite as much as that, but there was still a decent amount of motorbikes, and you know, they were doing the same thing. They were motor pacing everyone off the front. That course is a bit different, though. I don't think you face any there's not two-way traffic, which I think is the problem with Hamburg. Like on that dike stretch where the accident happened, it's only one car width wide each lane, and you've got all the motorbikes on the outside, and you've got athletes coming towards you, which if the athletes weren't coming towards you would just be the same as a normal race, you know, like it would be the same thing, you know, of all the motorbikes like that. But well, I mean, because you've got I get nervous enough about you racing Roth this year. I mean, I watched the Roth broadcast last year, and the second lap of the bike course when you guys are going through the age groupers and you guys are going, you know, 50K an hour, and there's people going maybe under 30. Like that makes me nervous enough. And then you look at this where there's like it was so narrow, and like it's always so sketchy on the second lap to courses, second and third laps. I hate it because you can't ride properly. The first lap you always ride so much quicker. Then you get to the second lap and you constantly have to have your head up looking, where's an age grouper? What are they doing? And because you're going past the back markers at the start, you're going past the 17-hour, 16-hour people. These guys probably don't do much riding because if they did, they'd be a bit quicker. They probably do a lot of indoor riding. So they're quite shaky on the bike as well. And it's always very sketchy, especially because the courses are narrow, what in the normal Ironmans. And there's always accidents waiting to happen. Like when I was in Texas, I think I saw about 5 crashes. And that was on a straight bit of road with no corners or anything. I think what Ironman would be ideal. The ideal thing for an Ironman would be 1 lap bike courses. So you're certainly not going to get two-way traffic, and you don't have people lapping other people. Because even on the coverage of Hamburg after the accident, I saw a bit more. I think it was probably last 20 minutes of the bike, or it might have been, yeah. It was a point where Jan was with Peter Heimrich and Christian Hogenhagen was up the road, and they were overtaking age groupers. It was carnage. you had two people coming towards you, like who was at the start of their second lap, I guess. Then you had Jan heading back on his second lap. He was overtaking all the age groupers, and then you weaving in and out, and it just looks terrible and it's dangerous. You've got like in some cases, 4 people wide of traffic. I just think you need to have 1 lap courses. Like I've done some like Florida, that was a 1 lap course, brilliant. No problems at all. Less drafting, because people are generally more spaced out on the course. What are the 1 lap courses? I mean, Kona's a 1 lap course. That's that's a lot better, even though the course there is terrible.
Wales,
but Wales, no, Wales is a 2 lap course, which would be better if it was a 1 lap course. But all the 1 lap courses, but Wales is quite a hilly one, so it kind of splits it up a bit because it's constantly up and down. So you don't generally seem to get packs. It might be like long lines of people, but the roads, and you don't have 2-way traffic. That's the thing. Like, where you're going one way and the age groups are coming the other way. It's always one way. And I think the roads might be closed. If they're not, they're definitely the technical parts of the course are closed. So it seemed okay. But yeah, the courses are very dodgy what they use, I think.
I mean, you talk to your peers. Has this been discussed between you and other pros? Like, are people talking about this? Has it had the breakthrough, or is it sort of more of surface level, public facing thing? Like, have you had discussions with other pros about it?
Not really too much different discussions. I posted something up and some pros commented and said, terrible, like the normal ones that speak out. But the problem with motorbikes is it's not going to get sorted out after this, because some pros want the motorbikes. The ones that are good swimmers that get out at the front, can't bike, they want the pros. If you're a decent cyclist and you're a decent swimmer, sometimes the motorbikes might help you if they're in front of you and they're pulling you along. But sometimes when there's a lot of motorbikes to the side, they can keep the groups together and it doesn't split up so much. But generally, a lot of the pros, from what I see, the ones that swim at the front never complain about the motorbikes in the briefings. They don't really say anything on social media, because for them it's their gravy train. Like they get out the swim, they think we've got 6 motorbikes waiting for us, happy days. I'll save my legs on the bike and have a good run. So they don't want to say anything, and that's the problem. They'll just admit there's not a problem because for them it's easy results, and it's a benefit that they get, and they don't want fair racing. To me, I just want fair racing. If we had loads of motorbikes in the chase group, I wouldn't want it. I've been in Texas, I had a motorbike that was coming to the side of me when I was in 3rd place. And I made sure I left it to the side. I could have rode right behind it and got a pull, but I thought you can't be someone that complains about motorbikes.
Yeah.
And then when there's a motorbike near you, ride behind it, because you'd be completely, hypocritical, wouldn't you? So, I wouldn't want motorbikes for the chase group pulling people along. Like, you just want, in the racing, the best person to win at the end of the day, don't you? If someone beats you fair and square, you can shake their hand and you can say, fantastic race, mate, you were better than me. But when it always leaves a bitter pill, it's always a bitter pill to swallow when that people have been motor paced on the bike and it's obvious to see. You can see it on the out and backs and everyone says about it, and you're like, here we go again, same shit all the time. And it just doesn't. And people say, oh well, the motorbikes, it would have been the same result with the motorbikes. I see that people say that loads, and it's like, how can you say that? Because, all right, yeah, it was a running race between the guys that got off the front of the bike. But the only reason it was a running race is because they saved themselves 40 or 50 watts, or they rode the same power, but they just went 2-3 Ks an hour faster. So no one else behind was given the opportunity to race them properly, because you can't compete with that. If a group has 5-6 motorbikes and they're saving 20 or 30 watts, that's 10% less energy. Or you put the same power in, you go faster.
I mean, the argument that I've heard a lot in I guess the counter argument has always been, if you want the race broadcast, we need to have the motorbikes out there with the cameras. But I think this situation, what is kind of black and white about it to me, that shows that that is not necessarily a valid argument, is the fact that it was captured on film, which tells me that there was a camera on a bike filming that saw the last, 14, 15 motorbikes behind it, and then captured that horrible incident.
Well, yeah. But that's what the coverage is shit, Tim. So like people say, if you want the coverage, you need the motorbikes, but the coverage is shit, and they only have one motorbike with a camera who focuses on the first person. So to be honest, it doesn't really make a compelling broadcast because the coverage looks crap. And why can't you have the motorbike behind the group, or comes up occasionally on the side and films, the pack, or like is ahead and like looking back? But loads of these other motorbikers don't even have cameras on them. So people always say that argument, oh, if you want the coverage, it's like, yeah, one motorbike can give you the coverage, But what the hell are the other 10 or 15 motorbikes doing? They're not they're nothing to do with the coverage. And the coverage is so bad that it's not like they're even making a decent broadcast. I mean, I watched some of the Dauphiné cycling race the last few days, and it's absolute night and day. They've got helicopters up there, they've got loads of cameras, they've got splits constantly, they've got a timer on the bit showing you how fast people are going. The commentators know what they're talking about, and the coverage is night and day. If we were getting coverage like that in triathlon, okay, there might be an argument for it, but the coverage is like something that was filmed in the 80s. If you look at 80s triathlon and you look at what we're doing now in 2020s, the coverage is no better now. I'd actually say it's actually gone downhill. Despite all the breakthroughs in technology, we're not getting any better coverage than what we were then. And if they want the sport to grow, it's like the chicken and egg. People say, yeah, but there's not the money in triathlon. And it's like, but if you want people to watch it, you have to invest. And if you want more people to, you can't just say, we want people to watch it, because the coverage is so shit. No one else is going to watch it unless the coverage is decent, because it's naff. It just shows you one person side on the bike with no splits on the side of the screen. So you have absolutely no idea. I mean, like, what it's like. If you want to know what's going on in the race, you have to have the tracker up at the same time. I mean, could you imagine watching a football match and having to have like BBC News or like a news website up to see what the score was, because there was no score on the side of the screen?
They worked out the score in the top corner like 20 years ago.
Yeah. So like you watch a football match and you don't you start watching it after 15 minutes. And I don't know if I've missed a goal or not because I can't see the score. So I'll have to get up an app on my phone to check what the score is while I'm watching it. It's just, absolutely ridiculous.
You said something a little while ago that I guess disappoints me, to be honest, and that's what you said, that this isn't going to change anything. You don't see this accident. Like the reason I ask is because I feel like Ironman have been quite vocal, right, about the fact that their core business is amateurs. They are a mass participation event that does have some events for pros, but pro racing isn't their bread and butter. This race definitely directly. I mean, I feel so bad and sorry for the guys who are in that front pack who witnessed this, but this race directly impacted an amateur. You don't think that might move the needle a little bit? You don't think they're going to go, hey, actually, we do need to change something?
No, I don't think it will. I think it will be exactly the same. I think it'll be outrage for a couple of weeks. Then it will die down. People will forget about it and it will be back to the same as normal. I mean, I've been complaining about motorbikes since 2015, 2016. There's been accidents with vehicles in loads of races that I've done where stray vehicles have come on the course and people have hit them, amateurs and pros. Matt Russell, for instance, during Kona, T-boned a car. Well, I don't think any more safety measures have been in place. It's just lucky that something like that hasn't happened again. Nice Ironman World Champs, the road's not even flipping closed. That last descent's not a closed road. So you can have cars coming up. Yeah, so you can have cars coming up the opposite way, whereas you're going down the descent. So if an age grouper overshoots one in the corners and a car's coming up the road at the same time, boom, you're going to have a head-on with a car.
That's a joke, right? You're joking.
No, I'm 100% serious. The Ironman World Champs course isn't closed.
I didn't know
so
this.
You can have the technical descent at the end, and potentially, that's why they say don't go over the centre line, because it's not a closed road. They can't guarantee there's not going to be a car coming up the road at the same time as you're going down. So if you accidentally overshoot a corner, you get the braking wrong. If that moment a car is coming the other way, you were going to have a head-on with a car. You could end up going over the windscreen, over the side of the road.
Well, let's use that as an example then, because if you're saying that section of road is open, we're going to have, I imagine we're going to have a lot of motorbikes on the course in Nice trying to broadcast the race. Does that mean we're going to have to see a change, because it's not just the potential of other athletes, but there's actual other cars that we come in the other direction? Do you think that, like, maybe that could?
No, it's trying to be optimistic here. No, I don't think it's going to change. Like they've said it now. I don't think that will change. And there's loads of races that you do where there's been stuff like that. I remember doing Ironman UK. I think the last time I did it, there was a horrible accident with an age grouper. Like someone said, they got carted off, like hit a member of the public. But people are outraged for a week or two and then it dies down. Same. It's almost similar to like the Colin Chartier thing.
I was about to say that.
He gets busted for drugs. Everyone's outraged for 2 or 3 weeks and then swept under the carpet, and it's like business as usual. It'll be the same thing as that.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, what do what do you think it's going to take to get the change? Because I saw that Patrick Lang is drafting an open letter to Ironman asking for a number of changes. I saw a lot of people gave him like what action is it a case of like who can make the change? What has to happen to change? Okay.
For them to get sued, I think they have for legal action to be taken, and they get sued and and end up having a big payout. And we're talking millions of pounds. Like they lose a big case because someone's very badly injured and they take legal action and they get sued for millions of pounds. then something else will change. If they don't get sued and they don't have any financial thing, like any implication, then it will carry on. That's in my eyes, that's the only thing that will change it, I think. I've spoke to the referees before in some of the races saying the motorbike draft is terrible after briefings, and they've told me the motorbikes don't make any difference. Stop making excuses and get on with it, basically, in other words. Like there's literally, I can only see it changing if they get sued and then the Ironman are like, we can't have this happen. We've been sued once now. If this carries on again and something else happens, we're going to get sued for millions of pounds again. Then it's a financial problem for them. And it makes sense for them to get rid of some of the motorbikes because they don't want to have the big payouts, because they lose more from that than they do from making from the cost of the safety measures. So in my eyes, that's the only way it will change.
Challenge Roth coming up at the end of this month has been quite vocal. They came out very early and said that they are minimizing the number of motorbikes. I think, everybody sort of has always joked that Challenge Roth is probably the worst culprit of this phenomena, I guess. Are you expecting, I mean, what have they said? Limit of 5 motorbikes or something like that? Is that even too many, or like
5 motorbikes would be too many, I think, to be honest, unless they're like mainly behind the person. If there's 5 motorbikes to the side and in front, then Jesus, it's game over for anyone else, isn't it?
Yeah.
I got a message from the organizer, or not from the organizer, from the referee, saying that the motorbike draft limit would be 15 meters. And I sent them a message back straight away and said, if that's 15 meters for a motorbike, then I'm not going to race. I'm going to leave the race because I think it will have a massive impact on the result and it's absolutely pointless. So that's me out. And then Felix sent me a message back. They must have sent it to him and he said, no, the rule's 15 meters, but the motorbike's going to be a lot further ahead. It's going to be 40 or 50 meters ahead and there won't be any motorbikes near the athlete, so it's okay. And I said, all right, then if that's the case, then I'll do it. But when they said 15 meters, I thought, well, Jesus, if you've got a motorbike or two at 15 meters ahead, you're saving 30, 40 watts. I thought, what's the point? Like, the writing's on the wall already. Like, so we'll see. They've said all the right things. If they don't hold their word, then it's going to be very disappointing. I hope they do, because then at the end of the day, surely all of us as fans just want to see the best people win. We don't want to see someone win who's been motor paced off the front, because that is bullshit. It's not the best athlete winning then.
Yeah.
I just hope it's a fair race so we can see who the best is and not like who the luckiest is.
Well, if nothing else, out of this tragedy, I hope that there is maybe a bit more attention as a result. Like, I genuinely think there are going to be a lot of eyes on that Roth race. There's going to be extra scrutiny.
I think so as well. I think now, if anything, after what's happened in Hamburg, they're going to be even more strict on it, because they want to almost like make an example, don't they? And say, look, this is what you can do. Yeah.
Anyway, Joe, thank you so much for joining us this week, mate. I hope you have a stellar race this weekend. I'll be following along, and then the rest of the season goes well, but I'm sure we'll be talking plenty between now and then.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Thanks. Great to catch up with you.
Don't forget to give your social media mention. What is it? Not Average Joe on Instagram. Search you on YouTube.
Yeah, not another average
do all that
Joe.
Stuff. Come on, mate. Give it a plug.
Not another average Joe on Instagram, and just Joe Skipper on Instagram. They're probably my two main ones.
YouTube, mate. YouTube.
On YouTube. Yeah, on YouTube, sorry.
Cool. All right, mate. Thank you very much. Talk to you later. Welcome back, James.
Yeah, that was fascinating. I've been looking forward to listening to you speak to Joe about that all week, and it certainly was worth my time. He's a very considered and measured man, is Joe Skipper. Sometimes not given enough credit for how considered and measured he can be.
I as soon as it happened, he was the person I wanted to. I mean, to be honest, I think I even had the conversation with Joe where while it was happening, we were messaging each other and it was like, "Do you see the crash? Yeah, terrible. Too many motorbikes, too many motorbikes." And I was the one, I think I was like, "Joe, dude, did you see someone died?" And he's like, "No, don't." Like we sort of lived that. And I think I said to him like 2 days later, I said, I think we need to talk about this, because you're to me, you're the like anti-motorbike guy. But again, anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about the race, because what we did see is we saw Jan Frodeno make his return to Ironman racing. I think I saw something like 1,100 and something days since he'd done an Ironman race. What did you think of the performances?
I mean, to be honest, I think Jan Frodeno did very well for his first Ironman for a long time. Obviously, Denis Chevreau from France won it in 7:26:21.
Crazy.
I thought his run was outstanding.
2:31.
He looked relaxed, man. He looked like he was breathing through his nose.
Fucking hell, didn't he? It was at the finish line. At the finish line where he crosses, He's just like there, just puts his thing on. Everyone else comes across and wants to die. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, Jan
Yeah.
looked like he was fucked.
Yeah. Jan did that thing that Brownlee did in Ibiza. He did that thing where he looked outstanding and then suddenly he didn't look outstanding. His shoulders dropped. His entire run
First time I've seen him look
sagged.
like it. First time I've seen it. I haven't seen it.
I think so too.
I have seen him look like that in the past when he used to race ITU against the Brownlees. But I hadn't seen him like such a notice because once he went to the front, I remember again, I was like, "Oh, this is good on it. Back to business as usual." And I remember they were talking about Dennis Chevreau and thinking, yeah, I mean, he's good, but he's too far behind. Like Jan's got this thing in the bag. No, he did not. The fact that Chevreau put like minutes into Jan, so the gap went so big so quickly, couldn't believe it. And let's actually talk. What an exciting finish, because you had Jan go to the front. You had Peter Heinrich drop back. You had that, Hogenhag was off the bike, I think, first. They catch it, and then to have Heinrich and Hogenhag pass Frodo in the last like kilometer to the podium. It was actually
the way Dennis Chevreau went past Frodeno was like he was standing still. It was an unreal pass.
It was like Christian Blumenfeld passing Magnus Ditlever that dash day
that challenge.
Where Magnus said he was running like 3-minute pace or something. Christian made him look like he was standing fucking still, and it was phenomenal. It was again.
I think
ridiculous.
Other than obviously, there's a lot of good to be taken from these results. None of these results are bad things for any of the people involved. Obviously, Dennis Chevreau winning it, good news for that man.
Defending European champ.
Jan Frodeno coming fourth and looking quite so strong up to the point he suddenly didn't look strong. Very good news for that man as well, having not done a full Ironman for quite as long as he's done. I think there's a lot to be taken from that. And Peter Heinrich and Christian Hogenhau, very, very strong races for both of them. A top four that is, other than Dennis being quite so far ahead, the second, third, and fourth athletes were all very, very close to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, genuinely think that most of the athletes don't particularly care about their finishing places, having found out what happened when they crossed the finish line.
Yeah.
Christian Hogenhau had a hole in his disc wheel where a piece of shrapnel had gone through it. None of these athletes particularly care about this, but we've still got to look at those results and look at the context going forward. Yeah,
I agree. Anyway, let's move on from Ironman Hamburg after what it's probably for the guys listening, like, we're sick of Hamburg. What else we got to talk about this week, mate?
There was a European Triathlon Championships Madrid, where on the women's side, Jenna Lehr from Luxembourg, Leher won on the women's side with
interesting.
Lisa French.
Isn't it interesting that she used to be French, I believe, and she went through the process of
nationalizing, repatriation,
repatriating
like that. She changed her nationality, basically.
Yeah, good on her.
Good on her, yeah. And then Lisa Tersch from Germany came second in 1:59.59 with Kathia Sahar came third in 2 hours 10 seconds. On the men's side, David Castro Fijaro from Spain won in 1:48.13. Johnny Brownlee in second in 1:48.17, and Adrian Brifford in third with 1:48.27. Now, strong results all round, but on the men's side, I'm pleased to see Johnny Brownlee having such a good race.
It's interesting.
He lost out in a sprint, mate.
Yeah, did he? Okay, I didn't know that. Johnny's it's funny because a few years ago, it doesn't even seem like it's that long ago, to be honest. We were in that process of his Ali brand. What's Ali doing? Is he sort of got 1 foot in, 1 foot out? Is he going for the Olympics? He's not going for the Olympics. I actually remember us talking about articles where Johnny was saying after Turkey he was all in a middle distance. Yet here we are, and Johnny's trying to go to the Olympics again. It's a fascinating time because we saw him race that Cagliari race, and he was just
he was nowhere. But after this one, he said it is an absolute massive relief today as athletes' confidence comes easily and goes easily. I had an all right winter of training, but Calgary was an absolute shocker. It was awful, and I didn't know why. You doubt yourself a little, but to come here and perform in a format that doesn't suit me with 15K of running and to still feel strong towards the end is absolutely
15K of running?
That's what it says.
Was it a duathlon?
Don't know.
Okay. Well, there you go.
It might be a typo. Maybe. Might be a typo.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, good on it. We always good to see Johnny on a Brownlee. Johnny Brownlee on back on the podium. Johnny on a Brownlee. A Brownlee on the podium. Very, very good.
Absolutely. You had some news about Ali Brownlee, didn't you?
Yeah, I just saw. We know that Ali was meant to be racing Hamburg over the weekend. He said that he wasn't, and I believe it came out this week that he's racing an Ironman in Austria to try to get that Nice slot. Good to see that he's hopefully not too far off that Ironman fitness. But again, I'm very curious to see what Ali we're going to get, because much like I've spoken about Paula Finlay this podcast, I think I'm at that stage where it is which Alistair Brownlee is going to show up.
Totally.
God, I have been. I'm so far down the like he's gonna do it. He's gonna do it thing. I have to just.
I know.
I have to keep.
So am I.
going.
So am I. I've tied myself to that now. I've tied myself to that.
I'll
so
die on
much.
this hill. I'll die on this hill, mate.
Yeah. I mean, he must be essentially in his brain. He must just be relieved he wasn't at Hamburg. If I'm honest,
wouldn't you be?
Because
Jesus,
it's a sliding doors moment, isn't it? Where you never know what that one additional pro in that line of pros at that point might have meant for that outcome of that race. You never know. So it's good that he wasn't there, and good that he's lining up at Austria for another shot at that place in Nice. We've got Ironman 70.3 Boulder coming up this weekend on Saturday, 10th of June, starting at the Boulder Reservoir. And there are some solid names racing there.
Sam
on
Appleton.
The men's side.
Sam Appleton's racing, I think.
We've got Sam Long, Lionel Sanders, Trevor Foley, Matthew Sharp, Tim O'Donnell, Thomas Rodriguez. Have we got Sam Appleton? I can't see Sam.
I think I saw it on his socials that he's racing.
Fair enough. This might be a slightly older article. Then we got Holly Lawrence on the women's side, Jenny Metzler, and I've just clicked the wrong thing, and it's gone blank.
That's
Holly Lawrence, Jenny Metzler, and my screen's gone white.
Okay, that's fine.
There are other people racing.
Again, we heard that Lionel's a new man. He's eating healthy now. So I'm expecting to see him dominate this race because, again, if he has done what he has done eating shit, imagine what he's going to do eating properly.
Yeah, exactly. He's no longer... Taylor Nibbs also racing and Lauren Brandon.
Oh, Taylor Nibbs racing. Interesting.
Is, yeah. I knew there was another name of interest there. It clicked to me right at the wrong
She's
time.
really bouncing between the two distances, and I fucking love it.
She is.
Taylor Nibbs. Oh yeah, great athlete.
Last year's winners, Matthew Sharp and Rachel McBride, don't look like they're racing though. But it's I do love that part of the world. It's gonna be an interesting race to watch.
Sam Long lives in Boulder, I think.
Lionel Sanders is no longer surviving on a diet of
pizza,
Chick-fil-A and whatever.
Oh mate,
else.
so again, well, he has to win. Like anything other than a win is a failure because, like I said, if he's done what he's done, even terribly, he must win. But it must happen, mate. There's no other option here, right?
It's the only answer to all of his problems.
I hope it actually. Like I said, I'd love to see him do well. Taylor Nibbs going to dominate this race, absolutely dominate. Like she's going to win by 20 minutes. So
yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I think she's just got that bike sewn up, hasn't she?
Absolutely.
I always like to remember standing at the start line of the Collins Cup next to Tim Hemming, and I said Taylor Nibbs going to take this one, and he went, "Not a chance." And I was like,
"Don't throw Tim Hemming under the bus."
I love that moment. I love that moment.
I also know that Joe is doing challenge. No, it's a challenge race in Belgium that Joe is doing with the cobbles.
Good on you, Joe.
With the cobbles.
Good on you. I saw a quote from him, which I quite liked. It's a well-trodden quote that didn't originate from Joe Skipper, but he said in an interview that, the fitter you get, the luckier you get.
Like he said, he's like buying lottery tickets, right? The more the fitter you get, the more chances you have. Yeah, again, it'll be good for him to. We discuss all that on the interview, but I think that's pretty much it, mate. This week we've done pretty well. Again, the interview's nice and long, so we're pretty well into this episode. What do you have much more to say? I don't really.
Not really. But if anybody out there has got any ideas on how to fix my hip, feel free to reach out because I could do with it. And it looks like I'm going to be at Ironman Switzerland in about a month's time. So if anybody's there and wants to buy me a coffee, feel free.
Yeah, again, not long till we rebrand this little podcast as well. Some things that are coming which are exciting. Don't forget to head over to that new Instagram account and give it a follow. If you guys, again, we'd love to hear your thoughts. I actually think this is a topic that open discussion is needed. To be honest, I'm not interested. There's no point in saying people will still do it anyway. But like literally, if you, I'd love to hear your thoughts about your response to this, what you think, how it was dealt with.
The response of like, well, it never matters because people will always sign up is irrelevant in my mind. Because if it continues to get worse, there is a point where people won't sign up.
Well, we're seeing it. We're seeing it at Kona and Nice. for the
Yeah.
like I think that price point, $1,600. And again, one of the things Joe said it on his podcast, and it's not even closed roads in Nice. Like, fucking
Is it
hell.
not?
Apparently,
Is it not?
apparently that descent is on an open road. That's why you're not allowed to cross the yellow line. Wait, mate, you'll when Joe told me that you'll see my reaction. I'm just like, what the fuck? And I don't believe it has been confirmed or denied by Ironman. So I know that the actual Ironman Nice, it's not closed. The descent, that road is open, which fucking blows my mind. Like, blows my mind, especially maybe, hopefully after this, things will change. And I'm also very curious to see how Challenge Roth is dealt with after this as well. That's the other thing I'm curious about. But let's leave that for now. I'm sick of talking about this. It has been a not great week. I think the main thing is we can't let this stuff keep just being brushed aside. Like, there's been too many things that have happened that people have just sort of, yep, we're outraged and we're done. We need to keep talking about these things if we want to see change. So, Jimbo, if people want to find out more about MX Endurance, what do they need to do?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at tford14 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the app. Really helps us out. We haven't had a review for ages. Don't just shout at us. Say something nice. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend. Help us grow. If you've got any suggestions, guests, comments, or criticisms, send an email to Tim or DM him on Instagram.
No, don't DM Tim. Go to @TalkingTriathlon and DM.
Oh,
that
yeah,
page.
that's the one. Go to the new one. We need to change these show notes.
Yeah, I mean, feel free. go for it. A pleasure, mate. Again, hopefully we'll be talking to things a little bit positive next week. But until then, talk to you then. Talk to you then.
Cheerio.